Hey everybody, it is Beetle Update Day. I've owned this Beetle for a few months now and believe it or not, I have done some work to it. I actually got some wrenches, I had to buy them, but I've turned a few of them, and in this video I want to give you an update on what it's like to own this classic Volkswagen Beetle. Now here's a story. A bunch of years ago we did a series around a 1971 Super Beetle named Felix. It was beige, it was lovely, but it was time for it to move on and I didn't really have the resources to buy it from the company, so it was sold. And then I kind of really missed that car, so a little while ago I found this 71 Super Beetle convertible up on Craigslist, and I was immediately taken by the shininess of it and the convertibleness of it, so I ended up buying it, and it was kind of a mess. To be, completely straightforward with you, I did not do the research I needed to do, and it's just got so much Bondo in it, and it's been fixed and repaired, I think, quite badly. However, in this video, I want to show you what it's like to own and drive a classic Beetle, and I found the worst area known to man to do this, so we're going to go somewhere else. Case, you want to hop in? All right.
Going right up to you.
Man, I don't know how we got so unlucky with this location, but we'll go find a new spot as it starts to rain. So we have these little filming spots, and of course we choose the one where everybody's at. All right, let's give this another go. So as you can hear, the Beetle is actually running very, very nicely. I've done some stuff to the engine to make it run better than it was when I bought it. So these have, let's go take a look. Push rods, right? Which, run little rockers, and then that controls the valves. And I don't think this thing has had a valve adjustment in 20 years. Because when I got underneath to do the valve adjustments, I got my little feeler gauge out. One of the valves was in about the right spot, and the other three were way too tight. They were incredibly tight, so I did my little work there to get the valve clearance adjusted properly. I got new valve covers on it. No, I didn't. I got new valve cover gaskets in there, and when I put it back together, this valve cover was leaking like an absolute sieve. I messed it up that bad where I was driving along a stoplight and it was just gushing smoke out the back, and I was like, oh God, what did I do? So I kind of jiggled it, and now it's better. So valve adjustment was done successfully by me. It should have been a 20-minute job. It took me about 2.5, 3 hours. That's about what you can expect. Now, a couple of other things which have gone on down here, it's got electronic ignition now. So this thing had points and condensers. I removed the distributor, I got rid of the points and the condenser, and I put this little electronic ignition in, or as Case calls them, solid state ignition. Really affordable job. Once again, that was a job I could have messed a lot of stuff up, but I managed to do it all by myself. Now that's about a 15-minute job, only took me roughly 4 hours. So doing pretty good there. Now, a couple other things about this engine. This is an aftermarket Brazilian fuel pump. Very, very common nowadays. Now, these fuel pumps are known for running at too high of a PSI, which will overrun the carburetor and cause this thing to flood when you turn it off and then go to restart it. That is definitely happening. Now, there's a couple of solutions to this. The first solution is to actually stack gaskets, because it's a mechanical pump with this little push rod that activates on the little lever in here. And if you add more gaskets, you can essentially reduce the output of the pump, which I've done there. But initially, I bought a rebuilt fuel pump from an older style Beetle, which I didn't know actually had a different push rod design than this later engine. And my flooding issue became way worse when I put that rebuilt fuel pump in. So I got to get a new little push rod for that rebuilt pump, and hopefully that'll solve some of the issues. Got a new carburetor for it. Honestly, I probably didn't need to buy a new carburetor because this MP is working pretty well, but when that takes a digger, I'll have one in place. Now, one thing which I'm definitely missing, and this is actually a really big deal, and I need to get this done, but it's such a pain in the butt of a job. If you look down here, this is called the tin wear, and this is what kind of keeps the air flowing where it needs to flow over the air-cooled engine. See this gap though? See that right there? That's not supposed to be there. There's actually this big rubber seal which connects the bodywork to the tin wear, and that keeps the air flowing without any leaks. Now, I am missing that, and some experts are telling me that that can raise the engine temperature by up to 10 degrees just from missing that seal. So you're thinking, stick a new seal in there. Well, first I got to get the remnants of the old seal out, and this has become prehistoric marble. I have no idea what kind of science happened to make that engine seal turn into the strongest material known to man, but I was chipping and chipping and chipping away at it, and it still hasn't quite fully come out. And then of course you got to get the new one in, which is a pain in the butt with the engine in place. Now, a couple other things. This engine still does leak. It leaks out of the pushrod tubes, and I think I'm going to get it overhauled. Now, I could potentially do that myself, and I might, but there's a great shop in Denver called Painter's Grinding. And this has been the biggest realization I've had with the Volkswagen community, right? So I've spent a lot of time and a lot of money on various online retailers getting parts for this thing. And then I remembered we had this shop in Denver called Painter's Grinding, which is a local Volkswagen specialist. And this place is insanely cool. It's this little down-home shop, but every time I go in there to get the weirdest, most bizarre part, they always have it. It's incredible. I've been dealing with the major retailers waiting weeks and weeks and weeks, or I could go 45 minutes that way. And the guys at Painters are super knowledgeable, really helpful. This is not sponsored in any way. I just love supporting a local business. But you go in there, they tell you what they have that works really well. They tell you about some of the aftermarket stuff which doesn't work well. They give me tips, and it's awesome. So I'm thinking I might pull the engine and just bring it over to them and have them go through it kind of once the summer ends and the convertible becomes less useful. So a couple of other things I've done with the car. Well, if you notice, I got new turn signals on it. This was kind of a disappointment. Now, the original turn signals were very cool. They said made in West Germany, right? But the chrome was all pitted, the lenses were cracked, and they just looked real bad. So I ordered a new set, not from Painters, from another source. They came in, they fit pretty well, but they're just like the cheapest, crummiest materials. I really think that's a shame. The old ones are really heavy and super well made. These replacements, they look good. I just know they're not gonna last though, because they're just not very, very good. Now, bodywork wise, this thing is in pretty good shape. It's got so much Bondo in it, I don't want to deal with it. I'm gonna drive it until stuff starts falling out of it. But it looks really good from like 25 feet. I put new door panels in it. You can see kind of what the original ones were looking like. They were just really tatty, and then they were torn actually on the front seats. So source these, a couple $100. There are about 1,000 little holes and clips that secure these in place. And then I know Volkswagen people say don't put the speakers in the door. This one already had speakers in the door. They were just too thick and causing the door panel to stick out. So I had my buddy David actually help cut a hole that fits this little speaker better. It doesn't look perfect, but it's certainly better than it was. And I do like having these new door panels. Front and back, I've got these new window rollers. By the way, these windows are way too hard to roll up and down. There's way too much resistance in them. So I kind of took them, when I had the door apart, I lubed them up. It didn't help that much, but I got new window winders. This is another part, actually, the painter guys told me. The original style ones are now made out of like the cheapest, crappiest pot metal, and they just don't hold up. So I had to go to these. I think these are MP parts. Not quite the look I wanted, but they said that they've never heard one actually failing or breaking. Other things on the interior, there was a horrible aftermarket radio which was falling out of the dash when I bought it, and I replaced it with a retro sound unit. Got that all wired up myself. That's about a 20-minute job, which took me about 7 hours. But it's got Bluetooth now, and I can stream my music, and it looks super good. You can see they actually match the faceplate material to the original dash, which is really, really good. The seats are original, looking a little bit tired. I don't know if I'll have them redone. I'm kind of running out of money. This thing's been draining me pretty substantially. And then new steering wheel. So that's also from the Painters Grinding guys. Now they had black and white. I actually went for the white. That was per my dad's suggestion, and obviously doesn't match anything on the inside, but it really livens up the interior. Original style design. I think it's made by MP, and I'm really impressed with the quality. Feels very, very good. It was a super simple install, and really transforms the look of the interior, because the original one was all cracked and worn out. So the top actually is in quite nice shape. Not much I'm going to do there. It's missing a lot of important seals though, or the important seals it has are all cracked. So like around the windshield, look how just bad that looks. It's all torn up. And now the reason I bought this car, this was a really low owner car. So the previous owner was this lady who owned this since like the early 80s, which is pretty unheard of, like 40 years to own a vehicle. And I kind of equated that with like really well maintained, really well taken care of. And visually, yes, they did do a great job of keeping up with it, but all the little things have just been nickel and diming me to death. So that's kind of a lesson I learned there, and there's still so much to do, and there's some stuff that I just can't really fix. Like if you look right here, Case, you can see where probably Bondo's starting to crack. And to fix this properly, you know, to really get this looking good would just be so cost prohibitively expensive for a car that's just not really worth it. So I'm going to leave the bodywork alone, but I would like to get that engine fixed up and really leak free, because it is leaving spots in the driveway, which is just a pain in the butt. And then I think it's also leaking a little bit onto the exhaust, because when it's really hot outside, I do get like little puffs of smoke out the bottom, which is like, that's not very cool, is it? Just not very snazzy. So let's go ahead and take it for a quick spin, and I'll show you what it drives like, because it's pretty good. Another thing is falling off. God, everything in this car is just held on with spit and bubble gum, but that's okay. So I know not everybody's a big fan of convertible Beetles, like Case. He's a much bigger fan of the coupes. Now, a coupe Beetle, a good one's going to be like 8 to 10K. All right, maybe 10K in this market. A good convertible is going to be like 18 to 20. This one, I think I paid 14 or 15,000 for. We also put these 3-point seat belts in, which have been a nice improvement over the non-retractable kind that were in here when I bought it. They are a little sensitive though. You have to pull them out at about the rate of a snail, but it does add a little false sense of security, which is very welcome. So let's start it up. Now, as I mentioned, if you let the car sit, it does flood, and I don't think the choke is even hooked up in this thing, but never really have had that much of a problem starting it up when it's cold. So I'm gonna go foot to the floor. Listen to this, I fixed this too. Oh, it broke again. What in the heck? Well, my warning chime is broken. Dang it, I was so excited to show you guys. Anyways, let's go ahead and start it up. There it goes. I love that little warning chime. I think that's awesome. So, a couple of other fun things about Beetles. This car originally only had one speaker in the dash, and that is missing. Also missing is any of the heater controls. So this heater has been completely disconnected, and you can see this drives me crazy. Someone decided to paint this car from orange, which was the original color, which is a great color, to a slightly different shade of reddy orange. Why not just paint it back to Clementine? I think that would be really, really cool. Lots of little things are wrong. Like I'm missing the little headlight cover for that. This carpet shouldn't be here on the dash. That looks bad. But my emergency flashers, those are correct. So at least one thing works. Now the transmission shift linkage is, I mean, it kind of looks like I have 4 neutrals, so that's something I need to address too. It's just a little bit worn out. But it does work like it should, and the clutch feels good. They have, I think, spent some time on the engine because it does run remarkably well, unless it's really hot outside, and then it starts to run a little lean. So I got to get that little weather stripping replaced around the engine. But yeah, the greatest thing about Beetles is driving them. They're just such easy, simple cars to drive. If you've never driven a manual, you can drive a Beetle. Anybody can drive a Beetle. They are the most approachable, friendly cars. They make this amazing little sound out of that 1.6 liter. They just have this fantastic little chirp as you drive along. And this one runs really well. Now this one still has the original vacuum advance on the distributor, which has been a great thing. I had one with the mechanical, and it just never really ran right. This vacuum works great, and they make pretty good power. Obviously, you're not going to be beating anyone off stoplights, but a Beetle, even at altitude here, will do 75, 80 miles an hour pretty much no problem. But this is a Super Beetle, which means it has the McPherson front suspension. The steering is really good, super direct. It's got pretty good feel. It doesn't wobble that much. The brakes are drum brakes. I have a disc brake conversion, which I'm starting my project on here to get those converted in the front at least. That'll be nice because the drums are feeling a little bit warped. When you slow down, your whole foot actually like bounces back and forth from the warp in the in the brake rotor or the brake drum. But yeah, this car is just fantastic to drive. Of all the classic cars I've driven, this is the one where you're like, you know, I just got to go run some chores. I don't want to squeeze myself into the Mini. Not sure if Case's Mercedes is actually going to start when it's hot. So, you know, take the Beetle. It'll start, it'll run. Everybody's happy to see you in it. And it's been pretty much dead reliable. I'm sure it'll break down on my way home now, but you know, that's kind of how it goes. I do have a couple other issues. There's a crack in the fuel filler, which means that when I make really sharp left turns, especially when the gas is above half, it reeks of fuel because it goes shooting out the side, which is probably not a great safety feature, for being completely brutal with you. That's pretty much it. I'm just going to keep driving it. Underneath, it's got pretty fresh pans in it. It's got some rust in the left side heater channel, which is a very common Beetle thing. But I still reckon if you want a classic vehicle, don't be a hipster. You know, just avoid all these fancy, expensive cars, which everyone wants, like old BMWs and, you know, really snazzy Italian cars. just get a Beetle. You're gonna get the same experience. All classic cars are slow, but this one is, at least this one is slow and sounds like a bird, so you get that going for you. And parts are so cheap. Every time I go into painter's grinding, like for the carburetor and the steering wheel and the door panels, and you're like, oh God, it's gonna be $2,000. And then the bill's like $350 every time, which is just fantastic. So as always, guys, check out TFL Classics. More Beetle coverage coming. This is just a quick update, and we'll see you on the next video.